I am going to show you the ultimate beginner-friendly system for selling as a developer in 2026. The same exact system took me from the quiet kid writing code on a high school robotics team, making $0, to running a multi-million-dollar AI consulting firm today. And the biggest shift wasn't my code, it was learning how to sell. You see, most developers struggle with sales because they are playing the wrong game. Most developers think that you need to be extroverted or you need good people skills, but you really don't. Sales is a repeatable system, and in this video I will be breaking down the exact repeatable system that I used and that dozens of other software engineers have used to sell their skills, land countless opportunities, and close high-ticket clients without changing their personality and who they are. Let's get straight into it. Perfect. Here in front of you can see the $1 Million Sales Script. You'll notice that it's about 22 pages long, and we're gonna go through every single page line by line so you understand exactly what you have to do and when. Keep in mind, this sales script and all the steps that you see in the sales script have to be performed in order, meaning one step leads to the next, they proceed in chronological order. If you don't follow these steps, you will lose its effectiveness. Not to say that you can't close somebody or you can't sell, but rather you will most definitely decrease your chances of closing them if you don't follow these steps step by step. When it comes to the steps themselves, as in the script itself, it is not set in stone. You don't want to sound too robotic reading off of the script word for word. Meaning, you don't have to say everything here word for word. The most important part of this video and this entire script itself is for you to be able to build rapport and trust with the person in front of you, get valuable intel from them, and get the prospect to go through the entire emotional state that the script creates. So it's less about what you say, and it's more about how you say it and when you say it. Specifically the script by script, if you read it, I'm just telling you off the bat, if you read it word for word, you're gonna sound robotic, so don't do that. Just try to understand the emotion that we create step by step. So the first step of any good sales process begins with what is called building rapport. Now, whether you have somebody on a sales call with you, they came from a warm background, meaning you already knew them, they knew you, they are already kind of familiar with your offer or who you are as a person, they came on a call, they're a little warm to you, you know them better. The first step is still to build a little bit of rapport. This is especially true if it's going to be a cold call, right? Or you're gonna call somebody and try to sell them something over the phone, or you're gonna knock on a door and try to sell something, you're still gonna need to build rapport. So usually, the first step, everybody almost always does, is to have small talk with the prospect. But you don't want to spend too much time into it because, end of the day, you have to show that you value your time because you are the authority in this specific context. The main goal of this first stage is to get them in a very positive mood and to establish a friendly back and forth between the individual. And this also kind of eases the tension of the sales call, both for you as well as your prospect on the call. So during this step, avoid asking any big open-ended questions, as you're already going to be doing that later on. And you need to focus on essentially bringing down the tension a little bit, maybe joking, just understanding who the prospect is in front of you on a very superficial level. Example, if the prospect goes on a tangent on the product that you're selling or what you're going to be offering, you just respond back, look, we're going to get to some of those later in the call. For now, let's just focus on, talking about anything. It can be about, things you've already talked about before if it's a warm person, their company's recent achievements, industry news, any shared professional connection, where they live, how they're liking it there, the weather. If you're video conferencing, look around their space, right? See if something catches your attention in the background, talk about it. Maybe they have like a guitar on the wall, or they have like a certificate on the wall, or they have something like a blue light over here, right? And some things over there, like ask about those. Small talk, you're essentially just trying to ease the tension a little bit. And once you're actually ready and you feel like you've already built up a little bit of back and forth here and there, you ask for their approval before continuing. This is extremely important that we ask for approval, because what does asking for approval do? It does a lot of things, but the biggest thing it does is it primes them to say yes. So let me explain how this works. You can say something like, okay, are you ready to get started? The person's gonna say, obviously, yes, let's get started. Then what you want to do is set the frame of the call, set the structure of what that call will be about or what the sales process will be about. The way I do it is I like to start off with saying, I'm going to ask you a few questions about your business, your goals, your challenges to better understand where you are and where you want to go. Then I'll explain how we at AB Analytics can help you and how we can get started working together. Does this sound like a plan? Once again, asking for permission. You will see that most individuals might vet. They might ask here, instead of saying, oh, how we at AB Analytics can help you and how we can get started, they might ask, if you are a good fit, then we can get started. I also used to do this, but after rigorous testing and a bunch of A/B tests, we found that if you frame it as a cohesive, authoritative, I'll explain how we at X can help you and how we can get started, that takes the frame of, oh, we're already going to be working together. And that works a lot better in reality, as opposed to saying, oh, if you're a good fit. When you say, oh, if you're a good fit, it subconsciously kind of puts it into the mind of the prospect on the call that this call will be sort of like a free coaching session instead of a sales call, which is exactly what it actually is. So then you say, does this sound like a plan? You wait for an answer. They're obviously going to say yes. And you say, okay, let's get started. So over here, it's important that we ask these close-ended questions that can only be answered with a yes or no, but with a high likelihood that it will be answered with a yes, such as sound good, does this make sense, ready to get started? Because these questions, as mentioned before, serve a great way to set a positive mood and see if the prospect understands everything you've been talking about. And furthermore, what will happen is when you get them to say yes, it psychologically makes them more prone to saying yes at the end as well, at the end of the sales call. And studies actually show this. I have a lot of things here linked that you can take a look at your own time, but it's very interesting how the human mind works. The more kind of close-ended questions you ask and the more times they say yes, the higher likelihood that they will say yes at the end of the call when you say, okay, are you ready to get started? Or, here's, I'm sending you the invoice, pay for it. Very interesting stuff. You can take a look at it. I'm not going to get into it now. Now, step 2. You can see that this step is optional. I have listed as optional. Generally speaking, I almost always recommend having this step in, only not for beginners. So if you're a beginner, this step might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I urge every single individual that is going to start to get into the sales process and really understands the sales cycle as a whole, especially if you're a developer, right? I know it might be a little uncomfortable. You want to integrate this down the line. So almost every single sales call or every single sales interaction should go with the thought of potentially you including this down the line. So all this step is about is increasing the chances of us getting a yes or a no at the end. Because the number one rule of a sales call is that a no is way better than a maybe. The worst thing you want is a maybe. Because nobody likes being ghosted. Nobody likes waiting for somebody to give us an answer. What we want is strictly yes, so we proceed, or no, so we stop wasting time and energy into that prospect. Many times, especially for beginner software engineers who get into sales, they get met with objections like, oh, I'll have to think about it. Can you send me the proposal? And then they're like, oh, sure, yeah, I'll email it to you. Like, we'll talk about it another day, or let's set up a second call, all these things. The worst thing, once again, is when they say maybe. So never give your prospect a chance to say maybe. And the way you do this is as follows. Immediately right after the first step ends, what you do is say, look, by the end of the call, if you feel that we are a good fit to work together, or if you want, you can even kind of make this more authoritative and you can say, look, by the end of the call, it makes sense for us to work together. There are 3 options for you. 1, you say yes and we start ASAP. 2, you can say no if you don't want to work with us. This is totally fine. You will not hurt my feelings. Or 3, some people say that they need time to think about it or get back to me later on, or that they need to talk to somebody else, another decision maker. In my experience, while that's often part of the process, it can sometimes mean that there are unresolved concerns. My goal today is to address all your questions so you have a clear path forward. So I'm looking for a simple answer from you, either a yes or a no. I have also seen that I have tried this as well. Me personally, I don't like doing it that way, but I have had some of my salespeople close really well with it. You can have a little bit more of an aggressive approach, and here instead of saying in my experience, well, that's part of the process, blah, 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 you can say in my experience, the people who say maybe are like the worst people to work with because they're lazy and all these things. In a B2B context, that doesn't work so well, but in a B2C context, that version will work better than this in my opinion. So you say, I'm 100% okay with either a yes or a no. Are you okay with this? And then you wait for them to say yes, obviously, and then proceed. Now, It's extremely important that before they get on the call, whether it's going to be over Zoom, Google Meets, or a phone call, you should have already made sure that the person you are dealing with is a decision maker, okay? How? You ask them. You put it in your application or however else you're going to get them to come on a call with you. You're going to send out an email, you're going to send out a text notification and ask them, hey, is there anybody else that we need to have on a call that will also be a decision maker, that will play a role in you deciding by the end of that call if you're going to say yes or no. If they say yes, it's my wife or it's my husband, yes, it's my business partner, whoever the case, you need to add them to the invite. You need to send them an invite and add them to the call, okay? And if you, let's say, didn't do that, you forgot it, you're already on the call, you double check by asking at the beginning of the call. So if they need somebody, if they need their spouse or their partners to make the decision, you reschedule the meeting then and there, set a new time together so you don't waste the rest of the call, okay? The last thing you want is to talk for 30 to 45 minutes with somebody only to discover that they need somebody else's approval and you just wasted your entire time there. Now, step number 3. This is called digging for the big why. This is essentially the bread and butter of the entire sales call. It's time to talk about the main reason why your prospect is on the phone with you and why this entire thing even exists in the first place. Your questions will vary significantly based on your offer. So since I come from a B2B background, I'm going to give you more of what a B2B offer should look like, but I'll also explain how you can tailor it towards a B2C environment as well. And for those of you who are not too familiar with the terms, B2B means business to business, B2C means business to consumer or customer, however you want to say it. So generally the questions that I would ask for the big why are as follows. Why did you take the time to follow through and talk with me and why now? Now this will stay the same whether it's B2B or B2C. You want the individual, the prospect, in their mind to kind of justify why they're there. And what this does is they think through it, okay, why am I here on this call? Oh, because this guy actually knows what he's talking about and he'll be able to help me and all these things. So when you say, why did you take the time to follow through? They explain about their problem and then they justify why they're on a call with you. So you don't even have to justify it yourself. Whatever they talk about here, you take notes and you say back to them later in the call during the summary section, which we'll get into. For me specifically, one of the questions we ask is how are you currently getting clients? As most people's problem has to do with lead generation. And even if it's not lead generation, if it has to do with, let's say, nurturing people, increasing the LTV, lifetime customer value, any type of these oriented things, understanding the process of how they get customers is very important. What's your current process to turning strangers into clients? How much money are you currently generating? This is going to be relatively the same also, whether it's going to be B2B or B2C. You'll just have to apply to whatever it is that you're doing. Are you comfortable with this amount? This is more of a, once again, B2C and B2B. You can do it for both. Where do you see yourself in 12 months? AKA, what's your long-term goal? You want to get a proper understanding of where the prospect sees themselves in, let's say, a 12-month range, what their expectations are, and then what have you done to work towards this goal? Extremely important question over here. You need to understand what it is that they have done to try to get to where they say they want to get to. And then, this is when we're kind of like digging in. Why is this goal important for you? What's your main motivation behind this? And what would the picture look like if your business were operating the way you really want it to? If this is a B2C offer, right, it would be, let's say you created some app for people who want to lose weight. It's a dieting app or like a fitness app. It would be instead of what would the picture look like if your business were operating? What would the picture look like if you were at your ideal weight, however you want it to be? What would life look like, right? That would be a type of question that you could ask. And keep in mind, this is tailored for a sales call specifically, but this can be taken account and put into a funnel, right? Into an email, any part of a sales cycle you can use this for. So if you're going to do a different offer, your questions will be different from mine. The most important thing aren't the questions themselves, but rather think about whatever you need from them and edit that into the document once you download it later. But once again, some questions will stay relatively the same, such as this one, such as these two, right, and possibly even this one. So make sure that the questions that you are asking, right, and the answers that you are getting are emotional, especially the answer to question number 8. You might have to ask them why a few times to really get a response out of them. And you want to dig deep until you actually hear them say something along the lines. And trust me, this might seem a little weird, especially as a software engineer. You're kind of like, why would anybody tell me this information? They do. So you want to get an answer like, well, I want to give my family a better lifestyle. My kids are my life. I want to leave a legacy for them. I've devoted my whole life into this business. It's my baby. I want to make the world a better place. I dream about buying a vacation house so I can go during the summers with my family. Take a mental note of your prospect's answers, or better yet, I recommend taking real notes and using that for later. I'll explain what that later is for, but let me give you an example of what this might look like. So why is this goal important for you? What's your main motivation behind this? Let's assume that I'm trying to make, or I have a business and I want to scale the business. Oh, I want to make more money. I want to scale my business. Okay, I can choose to stop there, but what I'm going to do is dig deeper. Okay, why? Why do you want to scale your business? Like, why aren't you just happy with the amount you're making? Oh, well, because I want to get a new car, I want to get a new house, and I want to be able to travel. Okay, cool, but why? Like, why do you want the new house? Why do you want the new car? What's the main reason behind that? Like, can't you just be happy with what you have now? Well, yeah, but you see, ever since I was a kid, I immigrated to this country. I never had the good things in life. For once, I want to have the good thing. Oh, why is that so? Like, why do you want a good thing? Are you trying to prove something to somebody? You're not going to lead them on. You would just ask the question why. They would tell you. Oh, because, ever since I was a kid, I was like bullied or whatever the case. They can go down some deep rabbit hole where the prime, that emotional spark, that fire will come out at you when you dig down deep enough until they say something where you're like, oh, okay, this is a little bit uncomfortable. Remember, during sales calls, you should feel a little awkward and uncomfortable because the topics you're talking about, right? You're getting literally you're digging the most important part of somebody's ego out of them, right? You're getting these individuals, your prospects, to talk about their problems and talk about essentially their most raw emotional state of mind whenever you ask these questions. So it should feel a little awkward. It should feel a little uncomfortable for you to kind of repeat it back to them, like, oh, because you had cancer in your family and your child potentially passed away and all these things, right? I've had cases like that where people on a sales call even cried because of how far we went along with regards to what they really wanted. Most people will give you surface level answers so they don't dig into the real primary pain points in their life because they want to stay away from that. But your point is to ask enough whys to get to that primary pain point. Now, the answer you get, this raw emotional thing, right, to why is this goal important for you, this will be what we call a secret weapon. So take note of this secret weapon because we're going to use the secret weapon throughout the entire call to remind the prospect about the importance of what it is they're exactly doing. Next, we get to step number 4, which is the current situation. We want to identify their pains and struggles. So now we shift the momentum and we start asking questions such as, what is your biggest struggle? Obviously related to the problems they have. How long have you struggled with this? How do you feel about not being where you want to be? And once again, we want to dig deep as possible to uncover their emotions because you want to understand what keeps them up at night, right? What is the one thing that when they go to sleep and they look at the ceiling and they stare and they think, man, I really wish this was solved, or man, I really wish this was different. What is that one thing, right? And all this information will help you do 2 things primarily. First and foremost, craft a solution-oriented deal for specifically that prospect, and then use this information to make the prospect understand that you have a solution to their pains. Because once a prospect understands that you understand their pain point, right, that you understand the language that they speak, they will be a lot more willing to trust you with the solution. Then you want to get them to a shortcoming confession, meaning once you're done with the previous questions and you've identified their shortcomings and pain points, you ask them, okay, what is stopping you from achieving this on your own? And this is the time when they, in their own words, justify why they cannot do it, why they are on the call with you specifically to help them with whatever it is that they need to do. They might say, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the time, I don't have the roadmap, whatever the case. You write down exactly what it is they said because they're not going to listen to what you said, okay? They're going to listen to what you said that were their words, okay? It's a very, very big difference if I say something and then you give a counter argument to me. But if your counter arguments to mine are my exact words that I told you a few minutes ago, that is a lot more powerful of a message because I can't dispute it. That's exactly what I said. So if you ask me what's stopping you from achieving this on your own, and I say, oh, I don't really have time, and then 10 minutes in the call, you say, well, you don't really have time, so this is why, if we work together, you'll save this much time. And then I can't just say, oh, but I can't find time. Because it was me, myself, it came from my own mouth that I said I don't have time, right? If I do say that, then the guy on the end of the sales call is going to ask, okay, then why'd you tell me you don't have time, right? You're going to look like a clown. That's why it's extremely important we have a shortcoming confession here. Then, step number 6, we want to get to what's called the cost of inaction. So we're going to make the prospect think about a possible future where they do not take action. And you start by remembering the secret weapon that we talked about. So how is the secret weapon that I mentioned going to be affected if you do not deal with this problem as of right now? And you should now kind of understand how we're using the secret weapon to get them riled up and get them in a higher emotional state. By asking your prospect how their most treasured thing on the entire planet is going to be affected by their inaction, you'll be pressing the buttons that activate the fear senses in their brain. And after they answer, you follow up with the following questions. What else will be affected if you don't fix this for good? How will the quality of your life suffer? How will your finances be affected? So on and so forth. Does that make sense? This is the most important part. You don't have to copy this word for word. What I'm trying to show you here is the emotional journey you're taking the prospect. Okay? We identified who they were initially. We made a little bit of small talk. We set the frame of the call, right? We gave them our options. We started digging why it is what they're doing and why they want to get to that next level. We identified their current situation, why they can't get to that next level. We get them to admit that they can't get to the next level on their own because they lack certain things. And then we tell them, look, you want to get to the next level, but if you don't get to the next level, this is what's going to happen to your most treasured thing. So now what you did is you put them in an emotionally vulnerable position. They are currently in pain because you reminded them of their deep rooted pain point that they didn't want to talk about. You amplified it by saying, look, if you don't fix it, this is what's going to happen. So now what you need to do, because they are in this emotional state of pain, you need to put them in a state of hope, okay? Hope is one of the most important emotions that a human needs to be able to feel to understand that there is still something to do. As long as a human being has hope, they will do a lot. There are plenty of case studies where when a human sort of stops hoping or they give up, right, they don't have a will to live, their body responds to that. So there's a lot of studies you can take a look into. I won't get into it right now, but it's extremely important that we create that hope for them. And I know you might be thinking, okay, this sounds like a little shady or this doesn't sound too ethical. I know why you might feel like that, but let me paint the picture right now before I even dive deeper into it, because you're probably wondering, okay, this feels a little slimy. If you genuinely can help your prospect, okay, this is the biggest caveat here. If you can genuinely help your prospect, you can make a change in their lives for the better. Example I'm going to give, if an overweight person, an obese person comes into the gym and you're a personal trainer and they have diabetes or they don't have a high life expectancy and you for certain can help them live a longer and healthier lifestyle, and you don't do everything in your power to sell to them, you are doing a disservice to yourself and your community, and you are being a bad person because you are essentially taking away from that person the opportunity to be better. Same exact thing applies here. Remember the doctor-patient analogy. If a patient walks into a doctor's office, the doctor cannot ignore a patient in need. Similarly, if you can genuinely help your prospect, it is your duty, not only your responsibility, but also your civic duty to sell to them and get them to the place that you need to get them, provide them with your solution. Only if you can genuinely help them, okay? So that's why, as kind of iffy as this might feel, you need to do this if you can genuinely help them, because this is the easiest way to sell somebody. So next we talk about creating that kind of hope for them, creating the future, essentially making the future shine, as I like to call it. And we're going to do this by making the prospect think about the positive outcome of solving their problem. So what we want to ask is the following question. What do you think the perfect solution would do for you? And this will make the prospect kind of imagine a better future in their mind of what it would look like if they didn't have that problem. And you'll actually discover exactly what they're expecting from you. So you'll follow up with these questions. Okay, what would your life look like if you implemented the solution? How would all the areas of your life look like? How would you feel if things went this way? So they might say, oh, perfect, I would be extremely happy, I would have a lot more money, I could do X, Y, and Z. And you want to take notes of that. And then you want to follow up by saying something along the lines of, okay, perfect, I understand. The challenges you're facing are significant, but they are solvable. So you want to tell them that, okay, it is actually like they do have challenges. You don't want to sort of say, this is nothing, like this is easily solvable. No, because people do have challenges. So you want to say that you understand these challenges, but they are solvable. And from what you've told me, it's clear that we need to build a plan that gets you to essentially from point A to point B, whatever that might be for them. You say, ask for permission, is that correct, right?
You confirm it, they say yes. Then you say, I'm confident that we can do that for you. The truth is, many of our most successful clients started in a very similar position. Would you be open to hearing about how our approach worked for them? Then obviously wait for a yes. And now we get into what's called the success pillars. So this is the part where we're going to talk about how they are going to be successful. This part gives certainty in the prospect's mind on how our offer will work for them. And this is extremely important because every single person thinks that they are unique. Every single person thinks that, oh, this offer will not work for me because of X, Y, and Z, and my situation is so unique, and I'm this one of a billion person. No, that's what we're going to make them understand. And these offers should be based on your own offer, but essentially on how it was created. So this was on mine. Obviously, don't copy this because it's not going to work. You need to have your own offer on this. But let me just explain how it's going to look. So you say, so look, after working with roughly the amount of people that you've helped, I've been able to help them succeed where others couldn't, and I found that there are however many components or pillars that have helped my clients achieve their long-term goals. Do you want to know what they are? They'll say yes, perfect. The X amount of components are, for me specifically, it was almost, about 4 components, and then I bring down the pillars, what the components are, right? And then you say, does this make sense? And then they'll tell you yes or no. If they say no, you expand on it. If they say yes, you say perfect. Now, step number 9 is recap. This is extremely important. Pretty much 90% of the call should have been done from the perspective of if you're going to get a yes or a no. You'll know when it's done, when the time comes for you to recap everything you guys talked about, right? It feels extremely uncomfortable and awkward for you to recap everything. Meaning, you say, so before we move forward, I'd like to recap what we've talked about. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Does that sound good? They say yes. So we've talked about your goals and struggles. We've talked about blah, 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 blah. And from what I understand, you feel that X is stopping you from achieving Y. You're looking for a way to whatever they need, right? Because you want to focus on whatever. Do you feel that blah, 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 blah. Essentially, in here, if they say anything extremely personal to them, if they say anything with a high emotional state, I remember one particular time, somebody brought the example of how he got divorced and the wife took custody of the kids, and he was trying to work really hard to be able to at least be able to see his kids. And he needed to make like a certain amount of money to be able to show that he can take care of the kids, take them out on vacation and all these things. And he just wanted to scale what he was doing with the business. For him, just himself, he was fine, but he wanted to do this for his family. And I remember when I had to recap the entire thing, it was a little awkward for me to recap it because I had to say to, somebody that, oh yeah, like, your wife left you, took half your money, got custody of the kids, and that's why you're looking to kind of expand the business or work on the business and get it to the next level. It was a little awkward for me to talk about it, but that's how I knew exactly that I had gone previously far enough with regards to understanding the big why, the pain point, and really drilling down. If when the time comes for you to recap everything you've talked about in a sales call, and it flows like as smooth as that, in your mind you don't for 1 second think, oh man, this is hella awkward, like how do I want to frame this? You're probably not there yet. You should still dig more and deeper to better understand their pain and dig a few levels deeper into understanding their actual emotional state of being, okay? But once you are there, you do a little recap to make sure that you understood what it is they said and to also show them that you are actively listening and that you are the right person for this. And then you wait for them to say, yes, this was perfect. And ideally, your recap should have so much information and such detailed information that they'll be surprised, like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't even think that this is part of the problem. Like, I didn't even think I had this problem. There's been many cases where I've explained to somebody the recap back to them, and they've said, oh, wow, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, you're right. Like, that is exactly what I'm struggling with, right? That's how detailed you have to be with regards to your recap. But more specifically outside of the recap that's how detailed your notes should have been up until this point, if you take notes, because of the person that's talked about, that pain point and how far you kind of dug deep into that. And then last but not least, you're going to have the price pre-frame, price reveal, and then the close. So once you're done with all the pillars, you've kind of already explained everything you need to explain, you're going to detect the time when it's already appropriate to kind of close them. They're already a little warm. It's time to seal the deal. And here is the script on how you can do that. So you say something along the lines of, okay, I'm in the business of making things work for you. For example, just recently I helped you give a case study, make an extra 150K in 6 weeks, right? The good news is that I have something that I believe could help you achieve similar results. Would you like me to tell you more? They say yes. My service is meant for you to get to your goal very quickly so you can enjoy the most treasured thing and achieve other goals fast and efficiently. And we help our clients with our 4-step pillar. It's called blah, blah, blah. And then whatever you mention here should be only directed to what they talked about. If you have any other extra features, part of your offer or part of the product that you have, don't mention it if it doesn't help them. Okay? This is another reason. I made this mistake before in the past too, where I used to constantly pitch data analytics services for people on top of everything. And most people don't even know what that is. They'd never even talked about it during a sales call, and every time I brought it up, they would think that, okay, but this might not be a good fit because I'm offering something that they don't need. Okay? It took me about like 4 missed clients, 4 lost clients until I realized what I was doing wrong. Okay? So it's extremely important. Even if you have other things available in whatever it is you're offering, don't mention it if it doesn't fall within the scope of what they talked about over here. Okay? Also, do not read this word for word. You're going to sound extremely robotic. You'll feel when the time is right for you to kind of get on the close, they'll probably ask you about the price itself. Then you shift them over to this way. And then you wait for the answer. They say yes. You say, okay, our service will take you from X to Y. And then you wait for an answer. Once again, you don't say anything. And when they ask for pricing, what you want to do is, first and foremost, you want to say, well, before we talk about price, did everything that I talk about here make sense? Would you be able to get started today? They might say, oh, well, I need to know the price first. Once again, you say, besides the price, was everything else that we discussed perfect fit? Would you be able to get started today? If they say yes, then let's get to the price. Then what you want to do is, there's a few strategies you can do. Price anchoring is called, or a few other things. Generally speaking, in a B2B context, this is what I love doing. I say something like, oh, our fee for building and managing this for you is, let's say, $15K a month, and there's a setup fee of $25K. But what we found over the past few years of doing this is that people who make quick decisions always turn out to be the best clients for us, and we get them the best results. So for those reasons, we have something called incentive-based pricing, where if you make a decision to move forward on a call with me today, right now, I'll waive the $25,000 setup fee, and it's just $15,000 per month. And then you shut up. You shut the hell up. You don't talk. I mean it. Not even a beep. You talk, let silence fill up the room here. It might get awkward. I'm telling you, I've been in calls where it's like 3 minutes of silence. And these 3 minutes, right, these 180 seconds are some of the longest silences in the entire world. It feels like hours. But even if it's 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, right, let that silence go. Do not cave in. Do not say, oh, but here we can do nothing. Don't cave in, remain silent until the prospect speaks. Because we're waiting for them to say something, such as if they want to move forward or not, okay? If they say, what's the next step? Okay, let's do it. Where do you go from here? Then all you really have to do is, okay, let's get started right now. And then whatever your onboarding process is, are you going to send them a Stripe invoice? Are you going to ask for the credit card info, process it yourself? Whatever. Then that's closed. Now, let's get into overcoming objections. What if they say, I need more information? How do you respond to that? You say, okay, perfect. You acknowledge, first and foremost, their objection. You say, I understand. I want this to be great for you, wherever they are. Let me ask you, do you have any questions? What do you feel we didn't cover? I'm here right now on this call to help you. What is your main concern? You wait until they answer the question. And then you state once again, my goal is to help you achieve this so that later in the process you can acquire the secret weapon. And now you have all the information you need after you provided them an answer. Okay? Then you say, are you in? If they say yes, you close it. They say no, they hit you with another objection, you handle that. So let's see what the next one might be. Oh, send me a proposal. I'll take a look at it and I'll let you know tomorrow or something. I can totally send you a proposal, but in the end, the proposal is a summary of what we talked about here. In my experience, when people ask me for a proposal, they usually end up not wanting to work together. Is this what's going on here? Is it the price or is it something else? Wait for them to answer. Do not talk. Make sure it's silent. Wait for them to answer. And then answer the question. And then once again, same exact thing. Are you in? If they have a pricing objection, I can't afford it, I don't have money, it's too expensive, I'll save up some money. You need to make the person remember the price of inaction. And also remind them of the things they told you might happen if they don't take action. Or you can split the payments into 2 or 3 installments. So I have a bonus guide for this that I'll actually dive into now. I don't know why that's not opening, but I think it's at the bottom too, so we'll get to it. Remember, we'll get into the pricing one more specifically in a few minutes. I'm gonna get into the next ones and then we'll get into the pricing one. If they say it's not a good time, Then you say, when will it be a good time for you to get started on achieving everything you just told me? You wait for an answer. I totally understand. Let me ask you one more question. How can I make this a reality for you? Most often than not, if you say, when will it be a good time? Obviously, they're going to say, obviously now. But if they say, oh, like I'm busy, I have it in about a month from now or whatever, you make them remember the cost of inaction. Always remember, most objections will revolve around the price of inaction because it's their very precious thing that they'll be losing. If they say, I need to look over my finances, you say, that's great. When will you do this? And then, can't wait, so here's what we can do. I'll reach out to you in next days or hours for a follow-up. Or what I will even do on that call is set up the next meeting right on that call. But if they genuinely say, I need to look over my finances, you can also ask, okay, is it a pricing issue or a value issue, right? Is it the price of whatever it is that I'm offering, or is it the value that you don't feel like is valuable enough? But if they genuinely need to look over their finances, especially if you're in a B2B context, you're charging a lot of money, let them look over their finances, just set up a follow-up call. Do you have a money-back guarantee? Most of you might not get this asked, but if you do, the way I like to do is, I'm glad you asked that. Yes, I do have one. What I offer is the following. If you don't like our first meeting, I'll refund your investment. No questions asked. So first meeting is usually the onboarding with everything that we do. And that's why I make sure that onboarding is as smooth as possible, because what ends up happening is whenever people buy from you, right, they are already justifying a pre-existing sort of decision, because the reason they showed up on a sales call is because they're already interested in buying from you. All you really did is give them a good reason to do so. And whenever they buy, they need to make sure that they don't regret it. That's why the next thing you do, which is usually the onboarding, needs to be as good as possible. If your onboarding is good, you don't have to worry about a money-back guarantee, obviously considering that you'll be able to deliver on what you promised. Can you guarantee this will work? My system is proven to work. You cite a couple of successful examples. But that said, like any life-changing opportunity, requires effort. If you're willing to put in the work, I can promise you I will be working alongside you, answering your questions, encouraging you, and helping you throughout the journey. Once again, don't ever offer like 100% guarantees, because it's all determined on the individual. You can't guarantee that, right? You can't live somebody's life for them. Okay, that's good to know. But what if they say no? Well, it's time for us to downsell. If you tried every single thing, every single objection, and there's just simply not a good fit for that right now, or they genuinely don't have money, you try to downsell. Offer them something that you believe they can afford. Either offer them something similar, but with fewer, let's say, features or whatever it is you're going to do, with a 50% down payment and then the other half next month. But if they can't afford that, offer them something even smaller, even cheaper. Give a discount and tell them that the discount is only available during the call for something cheaper. Your mission is to get paid. Get them to at least buy something from you. This is why it's always important to have a few offers in mind. Usually you want to have, let's say, the ideal thing you want to sell, anchor that with a very expensive thing, and then have like a smaller one in the middle. So 3 pricing tiers. Okay, perfect. Now we are at overcoming pricing objections. This is a thorough guide on how to handle pretty much every single pricing objection you're going to get. You need to understand something fundamental, and that is that people are willing to go to extraordinary lengths to purchase something if they are genuinely convinced it will work for them. Imagine if I told you right now that there's a lottery ticket that will guarantee you $1 billion if you essentially buy it, and it only costs $1 million. Given a week to gather the funds, almost every single person would literally move mountains to secure that money. Or if I asked you, if there's a lottery ticket that will get you $1 billion, how much money would you spend to buy it? Most of you will say, oh, 999,999,999, right? Same exact thing here. If there is sort of like a guarantee, or there is something that makes people think this is a good deal, they will do anything in their power to be able to make that happen. That's why, generally speaking, especially when it comes to your business prospects and your sales calls, 90% of the people who are showing up on these calls can afford your services. I would say it's even more. So the issue isn't always about them having the money. It's about being unwilling to take the perceived risk to purchase from you. Because when somebody says, I can't afford it, what they're really saying is that you haven't done enough to convince them of the value or certainty of your offering. Because remember, people aren't just deciding if they have to spend $10,000 on whatever it is you're doing. It's not just $10,000 between yourself or the competitor. That $10,000 could have also gone for their kid's Christmas present, could have also gone for their family vacation, could have also gone to pay for their mortgage, all these other things. You're competing with literally everything in their lives. As a direct result, it's almost always about what the value of what it is you're offering is. So it's about trust and not finances. In most cases, overcoming pricing objections require tackling doubts about your ability, product, or company, and not specifically their bank account. So let's talk about the law of value, because pricing objections often stem from a perceived lack of value rather than a lack of funds, as most people might think. People derive value from solutions that resolve their pain points or fulfill their desires. Because once again, any person, even if you think this person is completely broke and has no money, if they genuinely believe you can change their life, they will do everything in their power to pay you and get to work with you, okay? So what you want to do is focus on the outcomes and not the features, especially for those of you who are going to build out a SaaS, okay? Demonstrate how your service or your product alleviates their pain and helps them achieve their goals. Don't talk about your SaaS features. And this is the most important part of value generation. Prevention is key. The easiest way to handle pricing objections is to prevent them from arising in the first place. So stick to the proven script with regards to the strategy and the emotional state that it creates that clearly communicates the value of your offering, okay? Now, what if they truly cannot afford it, as we talked about prior? In the rare case that the prospect genuinely can't afford your services, here's how you approach the situation. You address their concern and exhaust all options to overcome their doubts and hesitation. If affordability is still an issue, acknowledge the fit, politely explain, I understand, and it seems we may not be the right fit at this time, and either try to downsell or just say, please don't hesitate to reach out when your situation changes. And this is something that most people don't talk about. Avoid overly accommodating payment plans. Please, while flexibility is good to have, avoid drastic exceptions to people unless you're in the early stages of building your business and need to gain traction and need to get that revenue to put money on the table. Do not make overly accommodating payment plans for people, because generally speaking, these will be your worst customers and it will be extremely unfair to the other customers that you have, and people will actually take note of that. Next, taking responsibility for motivation. Your role is not to expect motivated prospects to show up on the call. Your role is to inspire and motivate them, okay? Many will approach you with doubts, apathy, or skepticism. So it's up to you as a person selling to uncover their hidden concerns and address them openly and show them the potential transformation that your solution provides, instilling the confidence in your ability to be able to deliver it. Now we're gonna get into a little bit of kind of like an advanced price positioning and negotiation tactics. So to counter objections effectively, use advanced positioning strategies. So presenting incentive-based pricing, which is my favorite, as I talked about. So our services typically cost this much for 90-day engagement. However, we offer incentive-based pricing for clients who commit during our call today, reducing the investment to 100K. Using concessions to negotiate. If they still hesitate, follow up with flexibility. The last thing I want is for finances to hold you back. We can split the payment into 3-month installments of $33,000. So this method basically ensures the final offer still aligns with your desired pricing while making the prospect feel like you've accommodated their needs. Then reassuring the room on investment, emphasizing the value they'll gain. I'm confident this will bring in more than $100,000 in returns within the first month, ensuring this investment is worthwhile. Once again, you don't want to give like a guarantee, or you don't want to say BS if you don't actually mean it and if you can't actually do it. But if you're confident in doing it and you've gotten it for other people, say it, okay? Don't try to be nice, don't try to be humble, say it. People don't buy from nice people. They buy from people who can get them results. Always remember that. Then, final thoughts on like overcoming objections. Successfully addressing pricing objections hinges on demonstrating value and building trust. So remember, pricing objections are rarely about the money. They're mostly about doubts about your own value and your own trust in the offering. And your focus should be on amplifying the perceived value. So reassure prospects that your solution is the right choice to resolve their challenges. And through careful negotiation, strategic positioning, and a commitment to addressing concerns, you can transform pricing objections into confident agreements that you can close on the spot. Now, some bonus extra sales tips and tricks. These are essentially like expert level techniques that I would recommend everybody to start learning and practicing from day one. These strategies have helped me close millions of dollars, and even to this day, I still practice them. The number one tip I have, which is probably the most underrated one that I don't see many people talk about, is the power of silence. Silence is one of the most powerful tools in sales. After asking a question, especially one that requires an emotional response or a direct response, remain completely silent. Avoid interruptions, speaking over, or finishing sentences for the prospect. Let them talk freely, even if their response is unclear or hesitant. And here is why silence is so effective. First off, it makes the prospect uncomfortable. When somebody's uncomfortable, it prompts them to share more information. You also give them space to fill the silence with often extremely crucial insights about their situation that they might have tried to hide without it. And if their initial answer is unsatisfactory, remaining quiet encourages them to actually elaborate. And I've done this time and time again. For example, I might have asked somebody, oh, what marketing are you currently doing? They might say, oh, well, not much really. And I'll just stay silent. And then they might be like, oh, actually, like we do Facebook ads or something like that. And this, I mean, it's different based on question to question, but you get my point. Next, you want to have a non-judgmental listening. So never judge your prospect, either outwardly or internally. Don't make them think that you're judging them. Whether you think they can't afford your services, they appear too large for your business, or express ideas you find flawed, remain impartial to them. Judgment, whether expressed directly or reflected in your tone or actions, can derail the conversation by activating the prospect's ego defenses. When this happens, they will shift from focus to exploring solutions to protect their self-image. So approach every single prospect with an open mind, keeping personal biases in check to ensure an unbiased and productive discussion. No matter what you think of the person, if they can afford it or not, if they came in looking slobby or messy, or if their background is messy, whatever the case, do not judge them. You never know. I've had people that have shown up in suits, perfect clothing, nice watch on and everything, and they've been horrible. And I've had people that kind of show up like a bum, and they're one of the wealthiest individuals that we worked with. You never know. Then, tip number 3, let the problem sink in. When discussing your prospect's challenges, allow them to feel the full weight of their pain points. Ask probing questions that bring their struggles to the forefront without offering immediate solutions or reassurance. This is so important. Personally speaking, I've had a lot of difficulty with this because I am somebody that's sort of a consultant. My entire role in a B2B aspect and even on this YouTube channel has been to teach people and to consult. So my immediate response is to jump to solutions and reassurance. But I always remind myself I need to ask more questions to bring out their struggles until it makes me uncomfortable enough to have to repeat it to them. So your role on the sales call, remember, strictly this is for a sales call, in the sales process, your role is not to coach, it's not to fix, it's not to soothe during the sales call. Instead, is to let the gravity of their situation motivate them to take action, the action being purchasing from you. So think of yourself as a doctor presenting a diagnosis. You must make them fully aware of the problem before discussing any type of a solution. Next thing, you want to have unshakable confidence in your offer and in your solution. Sales is an emotional transfer and confidence is contagious. So if you radiate confidence in your product and ability to deliver, your prospect will mirror that belief. Conversely, any doubt or hesitation on your part can create skepticism. So the key to confidence, believe deeply in your product or service and exhibit conviction during pitches and objection handling. The more confident you seem, the more trust you'll be able to build with the person. Tip number 5, patience is key. Rushing through sales calls compromises their effectiveness. It's the worst thing to do. Don't rush them. If something takes longer, if the vetting process takes a little longer, if they're talking a lot about their pain points, if they get a little emotional, they're crying, don't try to rush them through it. Let them do exactly what it is they're doing and just set like an hour for the call to avoid feeling rushed. By taking your time, you show respect for both the prospect needs as well as the sales process itself, increasing your chances for success. Number 6, stick to the lines with regards to the emotions that need to be created. So maintain focus and stay on track. Avoid distractions or tangents, even if they seem like opportunities to build rapport. A systematic, professional approach demonstrates that you have a well-defined process and are serious about helping them achieve their goals. And then tip number 7, master reframing. Reframing is about confirming your understanding of the prospect situation. So summarize your responses to ensure clarity and demonstrate active listening. For example, oh, you mentioned you're using Facebook ads, but they're not performing well. You've also started email marketing, which isn't yielding any results, and now you're looking for a company to manage both. Is this correct? They'll say yes, which shows you've been attentive and encourages that the prospect will share even more details with you. And tip number 8, ego evasion and belief-breaking questions. A prospect's beliefs can often conflict with your approach, leading to resistance. So directly challenging these beliefs activates their ego defenses, making it harder to move forward. Instead, use thoughtful questions to subtly shift their perspective. You want them to shift their belief for you. You don't do it for them. Let me explain. If their objection is, oh, I don't like consulting firms, your response should be, do you think it's possible there are consulting firms out there designed to truly serve their clients? One of the ones I got most often was data analytics doesn't work for us. I said, help me understand. What specifically about data analytics hasn't worked for your business? And then they kind of like, oh, they don't even know what they're talking about. Or the, oh, I don't trust consulting firms. Well, do you think there's a possibility that there are other consulting firms out there who are designed to truly serve their clients? Well, yeah, obviously there's millions of consulting firms. Okay, perfect. What makes you think we're not one of them? Okay? Next, focus on diagnosing, not closing. This is so important. Shift your focus from securing a yes to accurately diagnosing the prospect situation. The more accurately you can diagnose the prospect situation, the only natural thing that happens, just like if you walk into the doctor's office, if the doctor perfectly describes your situation and your pain point, the next thing you're going to ask is, okay, doctor, what's the solution for this? Give me a prescription. Okay? They're going to sell, they're going to say yes themselves. And then last but not least, the power of okay. After a prospect answers your question, simply respond with OK and proceed. This neutral acknowledgement shows that you're listening without adding any bias or interrupting their train of thoughts. And what I have here is a script feedback form. So what you want to do is track your sales calls. Please, guys, track your sales calls. Whether you're doing it over Zoom, Google Meets, in person, or over the phone, track them and collect feedback depending on these criteria over here. So what words, phrases, or sentences were used? Are there recurring stories? What topics or parts of the conversation seem to bore your prospects? What makes your prospects sad, anxious, or frustrated? What metaphors and analogies do your prospects frequently use? What aspects of the conversation excite your prospects? What adjectives do prospects use to describe your current situation? What common desires or needs do your prospects share? And then after the pitch, what common questions do prospects ask after your pitch? What are the main objections prospects give you? What is the average outcome or conclusion of your calls? And are there specific words or phrases in your script that resonate with the prospects? Whew, I definitely need to drink water after this. Talked for over an hour almost. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was the full 22-page sales script. And if you guys truly understand the sales process, if you truly understand everything that's happening here, you have no reason not to literally be a millionaire by the end of 2026. I truly mean it. Take everything here, watch this video twice if you have to, apply it to your next call, apply it to your next meeting, apply it to your next pitch, and let me know how it goes. And if you want to see a live breakdown of how I use this script to close clients, you need to watch this video right over here. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good one.